Where were we? Okay, so welcome back to part two of 1922 to 2022, coming
Dun,
from
dun,
the Northern
dun.
Lights and Jonathan intermittently from Rome. Sorry, is that too bad? Okay, so where are we up to? Yeah, 1920. Again, we were talking this wonderful juxtaposition between First Goetheanum, opening people from all over the world, artists, thinkers, entrepreneurs, all coming together to build the First Goetheanum, a spiritual, artistic impulse. And on the other hand, Treaty of Versailles, trying to carve up everyone's piece of the pie so that everyone can make a lot of money. Is that a good synopsis?
Yeah, one's a club for the invited and the other's for everyone.
Yeah, and yeah, again, that's the thing for the elite. We were talking the other day about elite, like that we should rethink this word elite. Like, what
That's
is
what
it?
they like to think of
They,
themselves as.
yeah,
I
they like
disagree. They are
themselves
not
as a,
elite
yeah,
in my
I
book.
agree. It's like, I think we have to completely re-understand.
That word's being co-opted because when
Yeah,
I was young, like the elite were the knights, the elite knights on armor, the janissaries or the cataphract. And then when I was growing up on the BBC Micro, there was the game Elite, and you had to be a really good like star pilot and trader, the elite, the best of the best. And now the elite are these people who, to my mind, they're the froth that rises to the top of your stew that you have to scrape off and throw away.
I have to turn you up a little bit. Yeah, I agree. I mean, something I like to say in private moments is like, and I think I think there's a truth in this. Like Jeff Bezos, yeah, like you might go on LinkedIn or something, and there's a lot of fawning, like over, oh, he did so well, he worked so hard, and I don't know. Maybe it's because maybe it's because we're British. Yeah, we're brought up to have a little bit of irreverence towards our superiors because we have to live in the kind of class. I don't know. It could be all of that, but I just think you run an online supermarket. Yeah, you were at the right place in the right
You're
time
a grocer.
yeah, you're at the right place at the right time to link up people's shopping carts.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he's just a
okay,
grocer, and any grocer. It's like when I was for a while, people were railing against Tesco's, like the biggest grocery store in the UK chain, and I'm like, any corner street grocer wants to be Tesco's, and now they want to be Jeff Bezos. There's
yeah,
nothing special about it.
yeah. Well, this is the thing, and I prefer like the mum and dad run corner shop, and I guess
Yeah,
that's also
without the
disappearing.
megalomaniac.
Like the
Um,
pubs disappearing because the energy costs are too big, and the corner shop
yeah,
disappears because Amazon's delivering everywhere, and there's no
yeah.
bookshop because
But on the other hand, this is the way it's going, and it's an inevitability because of the technology. Because you can be an Amazon, you can monopolize everything because your power can extend so far and be so
exactly.
powerful.
And I think this is the point where we come to. It's like, okay, well, what choice do we have? Like since 2020, we sit at home in lockdown, and it's still, for me, it's still lockdown because I
The
mean,
mindset's still there.
I'm not
We're
going,
just waiting for the next
I'm not
command.
teaching in classrooms anymore.
Yeah,
I'm in my four walls, and so I
yeah,
have to think of a different. And I'm watching videos all day and chatting on
yeah.
Facebook and
Right.
stuff, and it's like, okay, this is the new world, and it. So yeah, bringing it back to this significance of 100 years, I don't think it's been spoken enough about anthroposophically. I don't think it's been given its due, its weight. I tried bringing it up at a number, the subject up at a number at a conference, and people shrugged their shoulders and said, "Don't know, haven't really thought about it," which for me is staggering, because that aspect of 100 years, the 33-year Christ cycle, you've got then Christmas, when an impulse is born into the world. You have then 33 years later when you come to like an Easter experience of that impulse in history.
So a certain culmination.
Yeah. So we've got then, if you looked at the economics course from Steiner or the First Goetheanum, you're then looking, okay, 33 years after this is
55.
55. And then you're looking at end of the 80s, around 88, 89. Yeah. And then you're looking at our time now, exactly now. So you can do this with many dates in history, but I think because the Treaty of Versailles is such a century determining event, I think that's why it was picked up on, and the 100 years is then mirroring with the two go together, the Great Reset and I mean, you have to, I don't know what words they take you down on if you say on YouTube, whatever, but those two, I think, are linked. Those two events are linked.
It's
the
very
push for a Great Reset and the sticking things in your arm thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting that there's this 33, 33, 33, and then that's 100 years rhythm.
Yeah.
And so Versailles was coming out of the Victorian era. And Rudolf Steiner's impulses, economic impulses, the Goethean impulses, you mentioned earlier, he didn't quite have enough time to realize them all. But I think also the people who worked with him were still pretty much stuck. There's a lot of Victorian mentality. And it's interesting now, we've come to the end of the Elizabethan age. So we're at the end of this 100-year cycle in respect we're talking about, and also at the end of another age of
yeah, that's interesting.
an era.
Let me just get you to clarify that, because I think I get what you mean. But what you're saying is, up to that time of Steiner, you had that Victorian age, and everyone was kind of determined by that very proper social
a bit stiff, not very imaginative, just terribly generalized.
Again, Steiner, like the great guru at the front, leading and everyone very proper.
Yes.
And then how would you characterize, if you're saying the Elizabethan age, which is
right, yeah,
a nice way of putting it. I like it. That's what we are, Jonathan.
Yes,
we are Elizabethan age.
Yes, true.
So how would you characterize us?
You have to.
That's
clear, we looked at 54, and I'm thinking 55, 54 is the Berlin Wall, but also Kerouac, hippies, explosion of psychedelia, which is I think in a way a subversive attempt for people to say this materialism is not enough. We want. We're digging deeper.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, for us, it was like the rave scene. Okay, we weren't hippies, but we were like,
no, it's been a battle, the Elizabethan age. I think this, the great opportunity of coming out of materialism. But
well, again, I think we've had to struggle with things that were only in their infancy in Steiner's time. So that when we speak about the Asuras in anthroposophy, that battle, drugs,
Addiction,
sex,
yeah,
addiction.
that takes oneself away from oneself, robs one of
Yeah,
oneself.
so we've
Yeah.
definitely we're like the products of that time. But if you imagine there were certain things that Steiner couldn't do because of that setup as it was back then, and I know in the last 5 years of his life he was trying to do the economics thing, what he was calling the social aesthetics, like how one works with other people socially in terms of initiatives in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there was the whole karma research in the first class, yeah, and that was
Right.
all but in those last years. So if we then said, if we just used that and said, where are we at in terms of, we come to the end of this Elizabethan age, what are we 100 years later on the brink of? And I'll give my answer before you give yours, but like, if I said, well, what are we on the brink of? I think it's exactly this. If this push for some kind of global economic system run by a handful of exceedingly wealthy people, even more wealthy now than they were 2 years ago, and the big corporations and everything, is not now the time that we're on the brink where something could possibly come from the little guy, not the big billionaires, but precisely through people linking up, associating, trying to collaborate, and try to actually promote each other, not just looking out for yourself, but fostering your fellow man, to put it in that Victorian style language.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I guess some of us, I feel, are open to this, and certainly I think younger generations will understand it. I mean, even people like our age, we're a bit dinosaurs for this kind of thing. I mean, we had Space Invaders and asteroids, but we didn't have like social media. It was
Right.
like going in the forest. And
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, I said a lot there. You can.
Well, you were asking what opportunity has come around again in a sense. And I think the lockdowns, for many, it gave them an opportunity to reconsider their lives and reevaluate, because they were thrown out of their regular life. And in some cases, their regular life was completely shut down by force. And so drastic changes like that give one the opportunity to reevaluate. And I would hope that it has encouraged more people to go to Zoom, etc., and seek people out, start making connections, and start thinking, can we think differently about things? Because I don't like this, what's going on me. And that's what I hope with it. Because otherwise, I'm afraid that I fear that this time is still rivers of blood, until, like it was in the First World War, the Second World War, and has been going on ever since then. As Rudolf Steiner said, when someone asked him, he said, when will people wake up? What will take them to wake up? Either rivers of blood or people wake up. And by wake up, I mean start seeing where they stand and noticing what's really going on, and then coming to terms with what their response
this
to
is
that
another
is.
thing. I mean, this is a whole another subject. But when we speak about rivers of blood, and we think, well, yeah, okay, there's a conflict in Ukraine right now. But I think there's a short-termism that we get lulled into in the modern world. This short-termism. Now, a lot of us forget, just flagging up Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and that's
That's
without
just
that's without even starting with
all the
Vietnam,
African,
Africa,
Angola, etc.
and
The South America. It's been constant.
exactly. And this is something you never hear this debate. And I imagine it's because people get very sentimental and they're like, they can't handle it. They just can't handle the fact that it is like that. It is pretty dark. You know, the ongoing wars.
Yeah. And is it disliked because one really is only discomforted by that if one doesn't kind of isn't able to meet the challenge that is inviting, which is that challenge that you then find your yourself, your individuality, which is, you know, this inviolable, we can call it spiritual something. You know, so all of that is not threatening and dark. It's really a call to that. But is it that people are afraid of that, that this sounds threatening and dark? I mean, it is threatening and dark
I
day
don't
to
think
day.
I think
Absolutely.
it's better to describe threatening in dark in a different way, because you hear about that these things have happened. You can read about them in your textbooks, or you can, buy a book and read about the
Yeah.
background of Iraq and Vietnam. But until, I think it's a question of powerlessness. That's the scary thing. You are brought to your threshold where you can no longer understand, and it's that powerlessness. Yeah, to think, if somebody says to you, well, you're going to school, you're not really going to be taught, your head is going to be filled with information, and there's a lot of wars going on in the world, and they're for people to make an awful lot of money, like a few individuals, and then there will be media used to promote mass involvement, mass conscription for wars. Now, if that is a truth, yeah, that is very difficult for your consciousness to handle. And then comes the myths. Then myth making has to come in. So you have to say, well, my grandpa fought for being British, and for our
Yeah.
values, and that's what he fought for, and he was a good person. And if you say anything about, like, against Britain, then you are disrespecting your grandpa. And it's that,
Right.
I think the myths have to come back. People can't handle the powerlessness of not knowing, and that's why we see the importance of what Rudolf Steiner gives in Anthroposophy, is to understand history spiritually, that we're at a point in history where we have to understand how the world fits together spiritually, and because it's to do also with our mental health.
Yes.
Because otherwise you'll start to go crazy. And we see this all around us right now. The people who don't understand what has happened in the last 2 years. They have no ways of understanding it. They don't know the difference. They don't know what materialism is, for example. Yeah, like, for people who don't have a background in esoterics or, well, that's the end of part 2. Stay tuned for part 3.